North Carolina, sitting between the Atlantic Ocean and the east slope of the Appalachian Mountains, has numerous chrysotile deposits concentrated in the western and southwestern regions of the state. Most of the job sites in North Carolina at which workers were exposed to asbestos were power plants, of which the state has several. Being located on the Atlantic coast, the state also has a maritime history, which also includes manufacture of the steel from which seagoing vessels are made. Asbestos-using industries are to be found in all of the state's major cities: Asheville, Charlotte, Durham, Fayetteville, Greensboro, Greenville, Henderson, High Point, Kinston, Nags Head, New Bern, Pinehurst, Raleigh, Salem, Washington, Wilmington, and Winston. The danger of power plants. In 2003, medical researchers in Puerto Rico performed a study on power plant workers that included a thorough examination of these workers' chest x-rays. 13% of these images indicated that the subject in question had some type of respiratory problem or was starting to develop some kind of respiratory condition. The Center for Health Statistics has gathered data indicating that workers employed at power-generating facilities, including electricians, pipe fitters, boilermakers, and other repairmen and maintenance personnel, are among those who are at the greatest risk of contracting asbestos-related diseases. Electrical conduits were often wrapped in asbestos insulation, and the asbestos-containing materials, or ACMs, were found in plaster, drywall, and the cement used to construct these facilities. In addition, asbestos is not only a flame retardant, but an effective insulator against both heat and electrical current as well. Electric wiring, panel partitions, and electrical cloth were all commonly made with ACM between the years 1930 and 1980. In fact, much of the machinery in these power plants contained asbestos, so it wasn't uncommon for fibers to get into the air inside these structures. In addition to the locations mentioned earlier, friable asbestos fibers might also have come out of boilers, turbines, and generators. Steel mills. The Nucor Corporation started its North Carolina operation in 1966. It was one of the first steel mills to use electric arc furnaces rather than old-fashioned and often inefficient blast furnaces. Nonetheless, heat and fire danger remained. Because of this, asbestos was used in gaskets and linings as well as ovens, ladles, boilers, and steam pipes. Ironically, asbestos exposure also resulted from clothing that was designed to protect steel workers from burns and included leggings, aprons, overcoats, gloves, and masks. Steel workers in greatest danger from asbestos exposure are pourers and casters, operators, tenders, furnace operators and inspectors, machine setters, millwrights, and welders. Marine industries. A recent study of 4,700 workers at a Maryland Coast Guard facility showed elevated rates of asbestos disease. According to the study carried out by researchers at the National Cancer Institute in Bethesda, the difference between these shipyard workers and the general public was small but significant. Wilmington was home to a few shipbuilding companies, including the North Carolina Shipbuilding Company and Cardinal Lines. The now defunct New Bern Shipyard was located in Pimlico. Regardless of where it took place, all ship construction in the U.S. involved the use of asbestos products from around 1935 until 1980. Asbestos insulation was used throughout old turbine steam ships, for pipes and other fittings, as well as fireproof doors, and even between decks as a sound deadener. Statewide statistics. Between 1980 and 2000, the population of the Tar Heel State grew by 2.2 million, representing an increase of around 37%. During that same period, there were just over 1,000 asbestos-related deaths. Mesothelioma victims were slightly more numerous than those with asbestosis, despite the fact that asbestosis is more common. This may be due to the fact that the long-term prognosis for asbestosis is somewhat better than that of mesothelioma, assuming the disease is caught in its early stages. Legal resources in North Carolina. A search through the North Carolina Federal District Court cases for asbestos-related personal injury product liability lawsuits brings up an extensive list of 50 lawsuits from 2006 and 2007. One of the major defendants listed in these cases is Aquachem Incorporated. In fact, there are only 3 cases in which Aquachem Incorporated is not the defendant. 2 of those cases are against the Anchor Packing Company, and the other is against 3M Company. North Carolina is ranked 15 in the U.S. for mesothelioma cases. With a mesothelioma mortality rate of 9.3 per million, North Carolina has a crude mortality rank of 35 in the country. A recent asbestos case in North Carolina involved British reinsurer Equitas. The firm agreed to pay $118 million to Charlotte-based manufacturing company Enpro Industries in a dispute over insurance coverage for asbestos-related claims against Enpro. Most of the money will go into a trust to take care of unresolved asbestos claims, with about $30 million going to reimburse Enpro for payments it has already made on asbestos-related claims. Several Enpro subsidiaries, including Garlock Sealing Technologies and the Anchor Packing Company, manufactured products containing asbestos. As a result, Enpro has been involved with many lawsuits concerning asbestos-related death and injury. Approximately $130 million of Enpro's insurance for such claims is held by Lloyd's of London underwriters, and Equitas reinsures the company. All of Enpro's claims against Lloyd's underwriters are resolved by the settlement. A key pro-plaintiff verdict in North Carolina occurred in September of 2004. The case Raymond W. Williams v. CSX Transportation involved Raymond Williams, a 60-year-old man who had worked as a railroad employee with the CSX Transportation for 38 years. In the year 2002, he was diagnosed with mesothelioma cancer, a result of working with asbestos products on the job. The pro-plaintiff verdict was unanimously upheld by the North Carolina Court of Appeals in March of 2006. Williams was granted a $7.5 million verdict. CSX Transportation used asbestos products on construction materials, boilers, and pipes that Williams would have handled as part of his employment. Williams, as a railroad worker, was not eligible for workers' compensation and had to file a suit under the Federal Employees Liability Act to claim injuries. The plaintiff was also responsible for proving that it was the railroad's negligence that led to his injuries. The jury in the case found that CSX knew of the dangers of asbestos dust beginning in the 1930s and also knew about precautions that could be taken to protect railroad workers from asbestos dust. The jury determined that the railroad opted not to protect or warn their employees until sometime in the late 1980s, which was nearly 40 years after they'd learned of asbestos dangers. In addition, the jury found that CSX knew in the late 1950s that asbestos could cause lung cancer and in the early 1960s that it could cause mesothelioma, but chose again to take no measures to safeguard employees or warn them about asbestos. In fact, CSX continued to use products containing asbestos until the late 1980s. Those interested in filing lawsuits should know that the statute of limitations for personal injury law in North Carolina is 3 years from act that causes the injury or the discovery of the injury, whichever comes first, but with a maximum of 10 years from the date of occurrence. This means that those individuals who contract mesothelioma must bring suit prior to 10 years from proven exposure to asbestos. Wrongful death cases have a 2-year statute of limitations. There is no specific statute about asbestos in North Carolina. Thank you for watching. This video was produced by Asbestos.Net, a leading resource on all aspects of asbestos and mesothelioma. Our priority is to inform victims about the devastating effects of asbestos exposure, mesothelioma, asbestos cancer, asbestosis, and other asbestos-related diseases, and to advise them with a wealth of information. Individuals whose lives have been touched by mesothelioma have numerous questions and concerns. Their caregivers and family members also need accurate, reliable information. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestos cancer and need more information, we invite you to visit and explore the thousands of pages of oncologist-reviewed material on Asbestos.net, to call our convenient toll-free number shown below and speak with a mesothelioma specialist, or to use the simple contact form found at Asbestos.net to request a free copy of our informative books, custom inserts, and DVD. Asbestos.net. Information and help for patients and families.